Manufacturing Insights, Manufacturing Engineering Magazine's video series for process improvement. This program examines quick changeover for lean manufacturing and shows how companies are becoming more responsive to customers' needs by dramatically reducing the time it takes to change over equipment. We'll see quick changeover being applied at the Wire Mold Company, where employee ideas lowered mold changeover times to less than 10 minutes, and at Associated Spring, where die changes are done in as little as 17 minutes with smaller subplated die sets, and at Powers & Sons, where changing customer demand is requiring more frequent changeovers, and several hours of setup time was eliminated on a multi-station machining center, and at Hitachi Automotive Products. After a Kanban inventory system was put in place to lower inventory, machining centers are now changed over faster and more frequently. In the final portion of the program, we will review the 4 common themes found in each company and look at how quick changeover fits into an overall lean manufacturing strategy. For many manufacturing companies, the time it takes to change a manufacturing line to make a different product has been considered a necessary evil, a cost of doing business. Depending on the complexity of the process, a product changeover can take from hours to days. Regardless of the process, however, there are some things that changeovers have in common. First, long changeovers lower machine capacity. Second, the startup of a different product produces scrap and rework as the machine is being fine-tuned. Third, because of the time changeovers typically take, conventional wisdom says it is more cost-effective to produce in larger lot sizes. But what if your company could set up or change over your equipment in a fraction of the time it now takes? What kind of benefit would that be to your company? What kind of benefit would that be to your customers? The first step in understanding how setup reduction can help your company is to figure out exactly how long your changeovers take today. Michael Beauregard, Director of Technology for Resource Engineering Incorporated, describes what setup time is.
And I define that as the time it takes from when you shut down the machine from making one production run, so the last piece off of the line or the last pound off the line, to when you get the first piece or the first pound coming out that's good.
Most companies that implement setup reduction do it as part of an overall lean manufacturing strategy.
These days, companies are trying to implement lean manufacturing to be more responsive to their customers. And setup reduction is one of the key tools that makes it so you can be fast, you can be flexible, so you can be responsive. It enables you to do the short runs at the lowest cost.
In addition to greater flexibility and responsiveness, setup reduction can generate significant bottom-line benefits to a company, often with little or no capital investment.
And one of our customers that we worked with, just by organizing the work area so that everything is there and the shadow board put up so all the tools are there, they estimated that it decreased the setup time such that it was $60,000 going to the bottom line and increased production capabilities.
In fact, setup reduction will effectively increase capacity and may even eliminate the need for new equipment to meet growing production demands.
A company that has 4 CNC machines, when they can go and take it 25% of the time being used for setups in a given day, and they go and find that capacity, you now have the equivalent of a 5th machine.
One question often asked when a company first considers reducing setup time is, how can we reduce the time it takes to set up a machine when we are already working as fast as we can? Even if everyone is working at the right pace, in most cases, some of the work performed during a setup is wasted effort. Setup reduction is about eliminating all non-value-added activities to maximize equipment uptime. Setup reduction is not about working faster. It's about changing and improving the work done during a setup.
We are not trying to make the operator work faster. We're trying to make the operator work the right way and then to work that right way efficiently. So we're trying to eliminate the waste in there So the operator works at a steady pace. We don't have that operator rushing. And people get hurt and they make mistakes when they rush.
Many companies start to uncover these non-value-added activities by using a video camera.
You go and videotape the setup as it is today, from the beginning to the end. And then you can get a team together, you can get an individual can work on it, then go afterwards and go and analyze that videotape.
Videotaping an actual setup can reveal non-value-added activities such as wasted motion during the setup procedure.
One of the things that you're doing with any of the techniques is you're looking to first eliminate whatever activities you can from the setup. So if you can eliminate having to use hand tools with bolts and go to clamps, you're looking at all the different things in the setup that don't add any value.
Most setups involve things like getting new material ready and doing paperwork. It is better to do this work either before the machine stops or after the equipment is back up and running, so you can minimize equipment downtime. Waste can also be found in other aspects of the setup as well.
Activities that aren't needed, adjustments. Where we're constantly tweaking the process a little bit, making adjustments is another example of a waste you have in there.
When undertaking a setup reduction effort, it is important to put together a cross-functional group of people who will work together on the improvements. One essential group to include is the operators who work on the equipment.
If you have them on the team, them coming up with the ideas so that their buy-in is part of the process, then they're going to make sure that it works and make sure that it stays working.
Although many groups need to be represented on the setup reduction team, realistically, you probably won't be able to have every single person who works on the equipment on the team. Because of that, it is important that everyone, including the second and third shifts, be trained and buy into the new process once it has been established.
Without that, you're going to have the same mess that you started with within a couple of weeks because everybody else is going to go back to it.
Standardization will help you achieve significant gains with setup reduction.
Standardizing on things such as hose fittings. It seems like common sense, but some people have different hoses, different threads. If you're putting fixtures into a CNC machine, you should have the fixture going into the same spot. So you have one reference point that the CNC is taking, or one datum that the CNC is working off of, and that the fixture is always going up against that reference. In a lot of stamping operations, if the tool heights aren't the same for each of the tools, you're constantly making adjustments in there. You make quick disconnects so that you can plug something in. Don't have it so you need a maintenance guy to come over and rewire something for you. There's a tremendous number of non-value-added activities in a setup. The biggest one, overwhelmingly, for companies that haven't been doing setup reduction activities, is the scavenger hunt.
One of the keys to quick changeover is that, like a Boy Scout, you need to be prepared.
So before any setup, we want to make sure that we are prepared for that setup and that we're not going and looking around for stuff. We're not going and trying to figure out what we're going to run next. That everything's known, everything's there, we're ready to go.
The Wire Mold Company, based in West Hartford, Connecticut, is known for their extremely successful implementation of lean manufacturing methods in the production of electrical and communication management systems. One of the many tactics they use to support their lean manufacturing strategy is quick changeover. Prior to implementing quick changeover, it was not unusual for a mold change to take over 2 hours, even though there was no material change.
There were actually some changeovers that took longer, especially if a setup man got called away to another machine and he wasn't there completing the setup from start to finish.
After the first setup reduction effort reduced changeover to 15 minutes, the team continued to simplify the setup process, reducing it to less than 5 minutes.
The fastest I've ever seen was 1 minute 24 seconds.
New company management set the goal for the setup reduction effort, but left the implementation details to the people on the setup reduction team.
Our CEO, Art Byrne, left it up to us to select which machine. He was actually really empowering. He said, "You're the experts. You figure out how you want to do it, which machine you want to start off with, which molds. Do you want a side load, top load?" He says, "You figure it out. I want 10 minutes or less.
Many modifications were made to the equipment to make it more changeover friendly. For example, hydraulic clamps replaced bolts and eliminated the need for hand tools. Initially, many of the tools used to enable the quick change were stock items, but as the setups were further simplified, custom mold carts enabled the setup times to be further reduced.
The first set we bought, the cart itself was stock. The roller section on top we had customized in terms of its size. They were adjustable by hand. The height was adjustable by hand with a hand crank. And we didn't like that setup. It wasn't positive each and every time. So we decided to go to a cart that was a fixed height and that was in line with the rails in the molding machine. And then, of course, the rack also matched the height of the movable cart.
One thing the Wire Mold Company learned in the setup reduction process was the importance of standardizing mold components.
First off, I'm going to say the clamp plates had to be the same exact size for each mold. All of the locating rings also had to be removed so that now the clamp plate was flush. We had to standardize on the ejector system, and not so much internal to the mold because each ejector system has to be different depending on the part design. However, it was how the mold ejectors tied in with the machine ejectors.
In addition, waterline hookups had to be simplified.
One of the largest areas of improvement we saw was in our waterline hookups. Some of our molds looked like octopuses because they just had 8 and 16 and sometimes 24 lines coming off of it. It was just a mess. And it's one thing just to hook those up. It's another now to trace them and make sure that they're hooked up in the proper orientation, that you have water going in where it should be versus coming out instead. And all of the water fittings were on the back side of the mold. That is, the operator had to walk around to the back side of the molding machine to hook them up. So we flipped most of the molds 180 degrees, so now the water fittings were on the front side. But we also went from as many lines as we had to 1 in and out connection per half. So now we have 4 fittings on every mold, and that's it. The rest has either been manifolded or jumpered, either with flex hose or we do have some aluminum manifolds that have been built and installed on the molds.
Each setup is timed by the operator as part of the standard operating procedure.
The clocks have been very helpful in getting to where we are today. When we first started with quick change, we needed to know, out of that 2-hour setup that we started off with, we wanted to break it down into parts of the setup. If it took 15 minutes for the setup man, for example, to go find the proper hand tools, okay, that's 15 minutes that he shouldn't have had to use to go find those tools.
Initially, employees were skeptical that a 10-minute changeover was possible.
Some people had to be persuaded, and others jumped on the bandwagon immediately and saw it as the challenge and the opportunity that it was, and said, all right, we're going to give him his 10 minutes, we're going to do better than the 10 minutes. So it jazzed up a lot of people.
With the new setup procedure, Wire Mold enjoys a much safer work environment.
We no longer need 2 operators with a forklift and a ladder and dropping the mold in from the top of the machine. Now the molds are on static racks, and obviously with a movable cart to transfer it from the rack to the molding machine. And that takes 1 operator. Everything is positively located. He puts a stop that attaches the cart to the molding machine and keeps it from moving out of position. And he can very easily push that mold into the machine.
The Wire Mold Company views quick changeovers as a competitive strength that helps them to meet customer requirements for smaller and more frequent production runs. For nearly a century and a half, Associated Spring in Bristol, Connecticut has served a wide range of industrial and consumer markets. Why would a company with over 150 years of success need to rethink their manufacturing strategy?
We wanted to get into setup reduction in order to reduce the time that product spent on the floor, reduce the inventory that we needed to maintain, and we really wanted to be able to take care of the customers and keep the production planning process as simple as possible.
Prior to implementing setup reduction, time-consuming changeovers made quick response to customers' needs difficult.
Sometimes our presses were down for at least half a shift, so it was a significant time to us.
To get their lean manufacturing efforts off to a solid start, Associated Spring brought in setup reduction training and hands-on workshops for the shop floor employees.
He came in with a formal training program that took them through not only quick change tooling, but through 5S, cleaning up the area, and in fact cell manufacturing.
As a union shop represented by the UAW, employee buy-in was a critical element to getting the program off the ground.
We involved the union from the beginning, gave a presentation to management, and we included the union leadership in that first meeting. And it was explained outright what our intent was to do with lean manufacturing and with quick die change.
It made sense to focus initial setup reduction efforts on the most frequently made products.
We make about 600 different items here, and 300 to 400 of them go into our catalog. So it's a fairly standard set of parts that repeat over and over during the year, even though the orders for them are uneven. So we targeted those first.
Because of the similarity among catalog items, Associated Spring was able to transfer lessons learned from one setup reduction effort to another by standardizing specific tasks across all machines.
Certainly in the catalog items, we were able to standardize a lot of what we did, and that resulted in reducing the setup times from, on those products it was started out at about 3 hours, and we were able to get them down to under 20 minutes.
The setup reduction team at Associated Spring found videotaping an invaluable tool in discovering wasted steps and activities.
Each step was timed and it was documented, and we would stop the tape and talk about it and play it back. One of the main things that we noticed was the setup man had to keep going to his toolbox to get tools. He kept leaving the area. That was the biggest bang for the buck, that was pre-staging and getting a lot of things done that we could get done while the previous job was running.
As a result of the video analysis, the team developed a pre-staging and post-staging system that has helped eliminate non-value-added activity during the actual setup.
What we did was we developed a pre- and post-staging card that we're trying to use now. So he's not out looking for material, looking for tools, looking for hand tools. We'll have those things already.
Despite the benefits of setup reduction at Associated Spring, there were several obstacles that had to be overcome.
The number one obstacle is getting through the day and getting the product out the door that we need that day. These are production people. You need to take them off the floor for fairly significant periods of time. That's been one of the main issues, is maintaining everybody, keeping their focus on getting the product out the door, and yet stopping long enough to think through the process and trying out the new quick change methods and getting the results that way.
However, the benefits of setup reduction have far outweighed the obstacles.
The response has been from our customers has been pretty significant. They've noticed the difference already, because we've been able to cut order quantities, and instead of ordering parts every 2 to 3 months, they now can order in 2 to 3 weeks, and we can turn the parts over fairly quickly, and now we're delivering in smaller lots.
And the response from employees has been extremely encouraging.
I remember in particular the one idea was the 3 different oil containers that one of the employees came up with, and allowed him to change his oil over in seconds instead of taking half hour. So things like that really made a difference and got everybody involved.
As in the case with most changeover reduction activities, this is only one aspect of a more comprehensive lean manufacturing initiative.
We've taken all of the concepts of lean manufacturing, Kaizen, 5S, cleaning up, organizing, cellular manufacturing, moving all of the production processes into one area. All of those have been incorporated throughout the plant. We looked at quick change tooling as integral to that effort.
How has lean manufacturing paid off for Associated Spring?
For me, the improvement has been in the cost of sales. That was evident right away. I was surprised. I wasn't necessarily looking for a quick cost reduction, but it certainly happened. What's happened most importantly is the employees have really had something to band together and get results working on teams where they've really been working in isolation before.
Powers & Sons, a division of Letts Industries in Montpelier, Ohio, designs and manufactures steering and suspension linkage systems. As an automotive supplier, Powers & Sons was invited to participate in a series of lean manufacturing seminars offered by Ford Motor Company. Mike Lehman, Lean Manufacturing Coordinator, explains the process.
They have come down and helped us get started in some of these activities. We had some machines with very long changeover, 8 hours or more, and that we needed to get better. So that was one of the first workshops that we did.
The first lean manufacturing workshop was focused on quick changeover. This hands-on workshop provided solid proof to the organization that setup reduction does work. The workshop mission was to speed the changeover of one of Powers & Sons' multi-head drilling machines.
It's like taking 24 drill presses and turning them over on their sides and then mounting them around a table that rotates. And in the process, therefore, you have that many tools that you have to change with each changeover. And that many fixtures. In fact, even 4 more fixtures that have to be changed for the load and unload stations. So 8 hours didn't seem too bad.
By the end of the 4th day of the lean manufacturing workshop, the team had reduced the setup time from 8 hours to 2 hours. This initial project went a long way in selling both management and employees on the value of setup reduction.
There was an expectation of failure, particularly at the management level, to really make a difference. It wasn't that they thought it was a useless program, but they didn't think it would be worth a whole lot. The operator level, they were concerned that it might mean less jobs and or more work to earn the same kind of level of income that they were getting at the time. We started out with some reticence, some sincere reticence out there on the floor and in management. By the time we were done, even with just the first one, we had eliminated any reserves that they might have about it, and our operators were asking to be next.
But why has Powers & Sons found setup reduction to be more effective than other cost reduction programs?
I've been involved in many programs of cost reduction, and most of them over the last many years have been focused on labor reduction. Now, labor accounts for maybe 11% of our total cost. You have to knock out an awful lot of labor to make a significant difference in your cost. Lean manufacturing, setup reduction, they are both targeting the finding of an opportunity to eliminate waste in your system. It has a lot more appeal and a lot more places you can go to find waste, and you should go to them all.
These kinds of results come from carefully analyzing the existing changeover and identifying steps that can be completed before or after the actual changeover.
We've given those to people like tool preset people that are doing more, have more responsibility now. Lead people have more responsibility to make sure things are staged and all the tooling is where it needs to be when we do the changeover and things like that. So the operators are actually doing less of the activity now than what they were before, but now we have more external people getting involved.
Some special equipment was also purchased that helped reduce changeover times.
Some of the mechanical devices we found beneficial were things like tool carts, shadow boards are very beneficial, air wrenches, and things like that.
Powers & Sons found that keeping track of setup time and communicating the results was critical.
We found out initially we weren't doing that. We weren't posting our changeover results, and we found out that that was negative. So we started having a graph, so the operator filled that out every time they did a changeover.
What has been the key to quick changeover success at Powers & Sons?
The biggest, probably key thing here at Powers & Sons about quick changeover and getting changeover reductions is it has to be a team activity. The people on the shop floor and the supervision here all had the ideas in their head. It's just a matter of bringing everybody together and getting them brainstorming and getting them out on paper and talking about them and then making the things, implementing the changes.
Hitachi Automotive Products, headquartered in Harrodsburg, Kentucky, manufactures automotive components for air, fuel, ignition, and transmission controls. When a new Kanban system was put into place to reduce inventories and enable a quicker response to customer needs, it became obvious that quicker changeovers were needed.
With the Kanban system in place, it forced us to start changing over several times a week. And we had to be more efficient because we was losing that. Changeover time is considered idle time, so we were losing that time. So it forced us to get better at changeovers.
To learn about quick changeover, representatives from Hitachi visited one of their customers to see how that company approached quick changeover.
It's a program that some of the individuals at Hitachi went to Nissan and examined. It's basically we like to go out on the floor with the IE department and we videotape an actual changeover process using that tape and the times it took to do each individual element, no matter how small it was, from walking to handling a part to getting locking in a fixture, moving something, whatever it takes to do the actual changeover process. And then we examine each individual element and see if there's any way that we can improve on it.
The first project the team worked on was reducing the setup time for the two CNC machines used to machine a throttle chamber. Prior to the improvements, or as Hitachi calls it, CORA, for changeover reduction activity, the setup took over 1 hour. The same changeovers now are done in less than 20 minutes. What changes had to be made to achieve almost a 70% reduction in setup time?
In this instance, there wasn't a lot that we had to actually purchase. A lot of it was done internally through our Kaizen department by making a fixture drawer in the front of the machine that allowed that specific machine fixturing to be put into it. So as a team member standing directly in front of the machine, he has those parts available. Tooling-wise, we built a shelf to go on the side of the machine that allowed us, instead of having to walk to a tooling cart and figure out which tool goes to which particular machine, those tools are now right there in front of him.
Much of the improvement in the setup time came from eliminating the walking for the new fixtures and having the tooling preset, ready to go.
That way the operator's not in any doubt where the fixturing, the tooling, and everything's located. It's within arm's reach.
But quick changeover isn't a one-shot improvement activity at Hitachi. The lessons learned with the initial setup reduction efforts will serve as the foundation for future improvements.
I think it could only get better. It's already, for us as a production department, made us conscious that when we actually do a line layout or setup, we take a lot of these factors in consideration.
We have seen how 4 companies in different industries have gained significant benefits with quick changeover. Let's review the 5 common steps that can be found in each company. First, a setup reduction goal must be set. As we've seen, even the most ambitious goals can be achieved or exceeded. At Powers & Sons, a 3-hour changeover goal was set for a process that normally took 8 hours to set up.
When we got done with the first workshop, we were at less than 2 hours, and they thought the goal for 3 hours was a stretch, and they couldn't believe 2 hours was even obtainable.
Second, Analyze the process. Record the setup using a video camera and carefully review the tape to identify which activities must be internal to the setup and which can be done outside of the setup or external. You could also draw a diagram indicating movement around the machine. Any activities that are not necessary to achieve the changeover should be made external. External activities should include paperwork, staging of dies, molds, and other equipment needed for the new process, preparation of new material or stock, and the gathering of tools that will be used during the changeover. Third, involve the right people in the process. That includes the operators, support personnel, and supervisors. Fourth, make setup reduction part of your more comprehensive lean manufacturing effort. And fifth, setup time should be measured and tracked. Building these 5 factors into your setup reduction efforts will help your company achieve faster changeovers. But once improvements have been made, you need to make sure that people don't go back to the old methods. Remember, old habits die hard. In today's economy, flexibility and the ability to respond to customer demands may be the only things that distinguish one company from another. Quick changeover is one technique that will enable your company to stand out from the competition.
It's safer, it's faster, we can respond so much faster to our customer needs now. If a customer calls and needs a part tomorrow, we can get that mold in 5 minutes after we get off the phone with them.